This mound is Chapel Head in Cambridgeshire. Everest it ain't, but to the locals, it's a mountain jutting out of the flat and waterlogged Fens. Over the years, farmers working this field have found lots of stone, loads of medieval tile, even these two columns. All this, combined with the name, has led to the local legend that this mound is the site of a medieval chapel. But it doesn't stop there. They've also found these two prehistoric axes on this site. So our job is to find out whether there ever was a chapel on Chapel Head and if this site held some kind of religious significance stretching back over 4 millennia. On the other hand, maybe the locals are just making a mountain out of a molehill. The mound at Chapel Head lies at the end of a ridge of high ground protruding into the flat peat fens of East Anglia. During the medieval period, this land was owned by Ramsey Abbey, one of 5 major monastic houses known as the Fen 5. The funny thing about this mound is it's only a few metres high, and yet it really dominates the landscape.
Yeah, it's the sort of place people would have used at any period in the past, I think.
For a chapel?
All sorts of things, but a chapel, certainly, yeah.
And, of course, we've got this wonderful find.
Yeah, this is Shelley limestone, possibly quarried in the Barnack area. They stopped quarrying this around 1500, and this is the sort of stuff that Ramsey Abbey would have been built of.
What do you think of the air photo, Francis?
Well, the air photo is extraordinary because you can see the top of the hill is encircled by this ring ditch. Now, to my eye, that ring ditch could be medieval, but it looks much more like something prehistoric.
Yeah, I would have thought. Yeah.
And, of course, they found the prehistoric axes here.
Yeah.
Yes, and they are very early, those axes.
It looks like we've got thousands of years of history to investigate, so there's no time to lose. Geophys and Stewart begin their surveys to locate the possible prehistoric ring ditch and a potential medieval chapel.
This is a typical collection of the stones we'd take off the field when we were farming it.
We're feeling pretty confident about our second target thanks to Mark England's family, who farmed the mound for over a century and unearthed a lot of intriguing stonework.
Yeah, well, none of this is local to the area. This is all brought in. This is limestone. It comes from around the Peterborough area, which is a good 20 miles away.
Yeah.
How many of these little heaps are there?
At least half a dozen along this ditch line.
Presumably, people have been doing this for generations.
I know that for a fact because my grandfather took a lot off the field.
Right.
And they actually built the back wall of a little cottage with it up in the village.
Excellent.
The good news is that all this stone looks very much like it could have come from a chapel.
John, have you got this chapel then?
The bad news is that Geophys are struggling to get any results at all through the wet clay.
I'm not really seeing anything. No sign of a building and no sign of this big ditch.
So we're going to have to find this by the conventional, the old way. So what do you reckon then?
Well, there are two things, really. I mean, we've obviously got this very good air photograph.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the platform that's there. It's not a natural feature,
Yeah.
It looks artificial. So I think that's worth investigating as well, in case that's the site of this possible chapel.
So we're opening 2 trenches based on Stewart's survey. The first one looking for a potential medieval chapel, and the other further down the slope hunting for a prehistoric ring ditch.
You do a good, like, 2 or 3 inches, I think, Ian. You can see the kind of greyish yellow clay coming out.
This is the ditch then.
Well, that's what it looks like at the moment, isn't it?
And the early signs are also pretty good up at Phil's possible chapel trench.
Oh, hang on, there's tile about here, look.
A medieval chapel might be as simple as a small rectangular building orientated east-west.
Look at it. Loads of it.
So it could be quite easy to miss.
Full tile, shall we get?
Yeah, it is. And you've got glaze on it as well still.
But the quantity of tile in the topsoil does look promising.
No, it's definitely medieval.
Although we're investigating 2 different periods of history, I'm assured by veteran fensman Francis Pryor that they're part of the same story. A story of religious activity going back thousands of years.
To you,
that probably doesn't look like much of a hill.
It's virtually flat.
But to a fenland, you know, it's vertiginous. And around it, there would have been water. And then it would have been very dramatic, because it would have looked like an island surrounded by an inland sea.
What might it have been used for?
Well, very often these high islands on the edge of the fen were special religious sacred places. And I wouldn't be surprised if the ditch that we know goes around the crown of the hill was originally dug in short segments. That is a type of monument which goes back to the very beginnings of the Neolithic.
With what inside it?
Well, I think in the centre there could have been a barrow, an ancestral graveyard. And then somewhat later, the short lengths of ditch were probably redug to form a henge. That's another sort of ceremonial monument that was constructed around 2500 BC.
More bone down there, isn't there? I think that's it, isn't it? Yeah.
It's an exciting theory, but to prove it, we'll need to find 2 phases of ring ditch in Matt's trench.
A little bit of charcoal there, isn't more of it has actually turned up here.
And it's looking hopeful.
Francis?
Yeah?
Come have a look at this. 2 things. Firstly, this just came out of the topsoil.
Oh, yes.
Well, what's that then, Francis?
It's a Neolithic flake, and what's diagnostic is this. That shows that it came off the core.
That's where they've bashed it off a bigger lump of flint.
Without much doubt.
Right.
Yeah.
We've got some pot as well, if it's recognisable, is it? Can you see down here?
It's all very fragmentary by the look of it.
Very, very soft, yeah. And I thought it's charcoal at first, but if you look, it's got inclusions and stuff in it.
Well, it's certainly prehistoric. It could be almost anything from Neolithic to Iron Age. I think it's potentially very exciting, this.
If this is a prehistoric ring ditch, it could be related to the flint axes that Mark's father found on the mound.
This thing just blows me away. I haven't seen an axe like this for about 20 years. This absolutely pure, black, beautiful quality flint. This is... I mean, if you could break that open, I swear blind it and say Grimes Graves running through the middle like a stick of rock. Now, that's pretty much the most famous flint mine site in Britain.
Yeah. Well, this is a fantastic thing as well. The finish on it is just so beautiful.
Yeah, but you see, this is a stone axe. And I'd swear blind that this is from the Langdales, the Lake District.
So that's come from a lot further away. But are they the same date?
Yeah, they're both, well, 4,000 BC through to, say, 2,500. What it demonstrates is that we have definitely got Neolithic occupation on this hill.
These axes were heavy-duty tools used for anything from felling trees to constructing a henge. So we're going to need more finds from features like our ring ditch to help us work out what was going on here. Back up the hill, we're still trying to find out if a chapel stood here 5,000 years later. And while geophys continue to search...
Oh, I think we got some sort of a surface here, mate.
Phil's onto something. Phil, you got something there?
Yeah, it looks like we got cobbles or something like that here, Tony. But it's going right the way across.
But you're not going to have a cobbled floor to a chapel, are you, mate?
No, but we might have cobbles around it, or we might have paths going up to it.
And not only that, we've got this lovely piece of medieval floor tile.
Well, I mean, that's going to be sort of 13th, 14th century, and it's the sort of thing that goes with a stone chapel or church. It's not likely to turn up on anything else.
All right, that's the medieval,
Yeah.
and you've got the prehistoric down here. I'll tell you one thing.
What's that?
Television is great at pictures, but it's useless at temperature, isn't it?
It isn't, because it's absolutely freezing.
It's almost unbelievable that anyone would want to build a chapel up there knowing that you get these kind of temperatures.
This is getting really exciting, this is.
Francis, what about this trench? What have we got here?
Well, we thought the ditch, you know, the big ditch that goes around the whole site, was down there.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's moved up the hill. It's there. But what's fascinating about it is that it's sealed beneath that dark layer high above it, and that's had some late stuff in it.
But have we got anything that actually dates our ditch?
Yes, we've got, for example, this tiny Mesolithic flint there. I mean, that could be 6,000 BC. And we've got a Neolithic flake, we've got Bronze or Iron Age pottery. We've got Roman, you've got some Anglo-Saxon. I mean,
got the full range.
we've got everything but the kitchen sink when it comes to dates, you know, because this was such an important place.
But let's not get carried away. We still need to get to the bottom of the ditch to tell us when it was dug and what it was for.
Masses and masses of charcoal. I assume it's actually sitting on top. Yeah, look, there's our cobbled surface.
Back up the hill,
Yeah.
Phil's now certain he hasn't found a chapel, but something more domestic.
2, 3. We could be about 3 to 4 metres across.
And this could be a hearth base or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's right.
And all this means that Stuart's found some sort of settlement and not a chapel.
You haven't seen this, have you?
No, I haven't, no.
But John's finally got some results.
Go on, then, tell me what it is.
Chapel size,
Yeah.
quite convincing.
Looks promising, doesn't it? Where is that?
Yeah, where is
you're-
it?
Well, it's under our feet.
So it's, how far away is that then?
Well, it's far enough to miss the chapel, isn't it?
It looks like this is worth digging, doesn't it?
Well, I don't want to eat my words.
That's as close to a yes as we're going to get. So our third trench goes in to find out if John's found us a chapel.
That sounded stone-like.
It did. Let's take it back from there.
The bits of tile coming out. That roof tile again. Yeah, there you go. It's a nice.
And Bridge and Tracy are rapidly getting into promising-looking archaeology.
It's a nice mortary spread, isn't it?
Yeah.
And look, it's bang on the boundary. Bang on with John's liners.
Perfect.
If this is a chapel, it makes you wonder who used it on this freezing, lonely hill. Our research has revealed that in medieval times, our mound belonged to the manor of Wolvey, which was owned by one of the great monasteries, Ramsey Abbey.
Well, we've got this fantastic document here. This is a land transfer from 1535. So just before the dissolution of the monasteries, and it is fantastically hard to read. But here we can see Wolvey, and it says that the manor of Wolvey pertaining to the Firmerer's office of the foresaid monastery, which is Ramsey. So that's the infirmerer's office.
What was an infirmary, Meg?
He was the official in the monastery that looked after the infirmary, which is where the sick and old monks went.
So he was like a doctor?
Yes, except he wouldn't have had the skills of a doctor beyond, things like herbs and so on.
What might an infirmer have been doing on our mound?
Well, he may have just drawn an income from leasing the land out. Or, of course, there may have been a grange there, a monastic farm. But also, of course, it may have been the place where something like bloodletting was done.
So if we do have a chapel, it could be just part of the medieval story. And we should be on the lookout for a grange, or possibly some kind of hospital. And we also need to work out how Phil's structure fits into the picture.
Phil?
Yo!
I've just been having a rummage in your phones tray. I found that bit of pot. It's quite early in medieval terms. You might even be looking at the end of the Saxon period, just before the Norman conquest.
Really?
Yeah, they start making that stuff around about 1000. And it goes through to about 1150, no later than that, really.
Looking at the fabric, I'm pretty sure I've seen other pot very similar to this from this trench.
I think there's quite early medieval occupation around here, so it's looking like it anyway.
This is potentially very exciting, because it could mean that there was an early ecclesiastical settlement here about the time that Ramsey Abbey was founded, and that's something you don't find every day. The news isn't so good down in Matt's trench, where the prehistoric ring ditch Francis was so sure he'd found seems to have disappeared. Matt thinks the crop mark has been caused by the grey layer which they found earlier.
I'm going for that, I think.
Well, as the ditch?
Almost, yeah.
No.
But Francis isn't convinced.
Sorry, it wouldn't make a crop mark like that. That's something, I don't know, 1 metre, 2 metres deep makes a mark that, not a little smear.
OK, well, we should find out.
We will. I'll be right.
If Francis is wrong, his dream of finding a prehistoric henge could lie in tatters, but it's a much rosier outlook for the chapel hunters.
Phil in his trench has got cobbles. We've got something quite different. We've got limestone rubble. That could be collapsed walling. This is either a robbed out wall or could be a surface, and we've got glazed tiles as well.
Take a look at John's new geophys. This is here where we think the chapel is. Look at this rectangle around it. What's going on in here? We'll find out tomorrow.
Join a thriving worldwide community of Time Team fans on Patreon.
Our new target is to reach 15,000 worldwide supporters on Patreon by the end of 2025. This will enable us to continue expanding the Time Team world with more digs and greater access than ever before.
Beginning of day 2 here at Chapel Head in Cambridgeshire, where we're looking for, surprise, surprise, a lost chapel. And we've certainly found something chapel-like down here, which is getting everybody quite excited. But it must be a bit of a disappointment for Phil, because yesterday he put in our first trench over here looking for the chapel, and you missed it by about 4 metres, didn't you, mate?
We might not have found the chapel, but look what we have found. Inadvertently, we've actually located the trench slap bang on what is probably the biggest geophysical anomaly around this enclosure ditch.
So that geophysical anomaly was presumably that patch of cobbles there?
It's a mixture of the cobbles and all the masses of burning that we got there. I think what it is probably building debris that's just been flung into the top of the ditch.
The ditch looks like it's some sort of perimeter around a chapel, and Phil's already found some pottery which could date it to the Saxon period. It could be very early then.
Yeah.
What might be in the middle of it?
Well, if this is a chapel and we still haven't resolved that, it wouldn't surprise me if there weren't burials with it. And after all, there might be a settlement going with it.
Do I hear some sceptical snorts from my right-hand side?
It's possible. Don't you think it's a bit big, Mick, just to be an enclosure around another chapel?
And not if it's important early on.
Right. So where are we going to put the trench?
I mean, this is the perimeter we're talking about. But we've also got this possible enclosure here. I mean, I think we ought to investigate both of those. Then we can get some dating evidence out and see if they're all from the same sort of period.
So Tracy puts a new trench in across 2 enclosure ditches. A small curved one and a big rectangular one, looking for debris from an early ecclesiastical settlement. Jason over there's just found this lovely little thing. We know it's lead. We think it might be some kind of seal, and it's definitely got letters around it. I have to whip that down to Helen to see if she can work out precisely what it is. Where did you get it, Jason?
I found it in this part of the spool here, which is roughly about where the spade is.
Must have made your day.
Oh yeah, well worth the cold winds, yes.
This intriguing find came out of Bridges Chapel Trench, which Phil has now gate crashed.
And have one big pull, then we can go right the way across the wall. Monkeying about just pulling it back a metre ain't going to do any good at all. You'll thank me for this, Bridge.
Will I?
Yeah.
It looks like most of the stone has been robbed away, leaving clay and gravel foundations. What we really need is evidence to prove this is a chapel and not some other medieval building.
Wow, what a brilliant find.
And we're hoping the lead find can help.
The bottom of a lead seal.
Looks
bottom
like it,
or
certainly.
top? Bottom, I think.
What sort of date is it?
Well, these ones with just a name on, a 13th century. And in fact, something like this could have been used to seal a document. I mean, very like putting a signature on it, authenticating it. I mean, you can see some of the letters. Look, this one here, this kind of backwards spiral.
Oh, yeah.
Now that, kind of like that is a G, and that's backwards because you'd read it in impression.
Helen's going to try and work out the name of the person who dropped their seal on this chilly mound overlooking the Fens 800 years ago. When we first arrived here, we were presented with this beautiful air photo with this circular feature round our mound, which all the archaeologists were pretty sure was a prehistoric ditch. So we put this trench in to find it, and sure enough, Francis found it, but he seems to have had one of his senior moments, because you've lost your ditch, haven't you?
I have, Tony, yes. Look, we originally thought that this dark band here was the ditch, but then it's too slight, too insubstantial. Then we got an accurate plot of the air photos, and that showed that the ditch should be running through up this end of the trench. So we dug a hole, and we couldn't find it. And then we were cleaning up a section here when we found this dark shape here, which is undoubtedly the ditch, except there's a problem. Follow me. because when you come round here, from this side, it's not there.
How can you have half a ditch?
Well, it's either stopping in the middle of the trench, or it isn't a ditch at all, it's a pit. And the only way we'll know that is by putting another trench over here on the other side of a spoil heap.
So Francis opens a new trench to see if the ditch continues. If it does, it should give us finds that can tell us what was happening here thousands of years ago. If it doesn't, it's back to the drawing board. In comparison, the search for a chapel seems to be going swimmingly.
All know about this then, Bridge?
Does it look like one of those floor tiles?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Oh, that's nice, isn't it, eh?
Just saw a flash of glaze.
Oh, that is nice.
It is. It's got a real green
That's it.
tinge to it, doesn't it?
Cracking, isn't it, eh?
Not only are the finds promising, but Helen's made a discovery.
I've gone back to what I was working on yesterday, which is this land transfer document.
She's found a reference to a chapel in the manor of Wolvie, which is being leased to a farmer by the infirmary of Ramsey Abbey.
They're granting a certain amount of resource to the new lessee, with some exceptions. He doesn't seem to be able to use the whole offering that shall be offered to the said place or chapel. Now, that seems to imply that that chapel has got to be part of the manor, would it?
If it's here, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the key.
Proof at last that there was a chapel here in the 16th century and that Ramsey Abbey was taking an income from it.
Lovely job.
And its shape could tell us how important a chapel it was.
Just pull that back at that sort of level, I'd have thought, Ian.
In the ground, the simplest chapel might show up as just a single cell. More important ones might have a chancel at the holy end, and possibly even an apse. And if you're really lucky, the west end might have a bell tower. Earlier today, Tracy put a new trench in across 2 enclosure ditches that might be related to the chapel. But the smaller one now seems to be prehistoric.
Oh, there's that nice big bit.
That looks early Bronze Age to me. Sort of domestic type pottery.
Cooking pot.
Cooking pot. So that suggests that we've got something new that we haven't had before on this site, and that is prehistoric settlement.
Excellent.
Okay, one piece of pot doesn't make a site, but...
2 pieces?
Yeah. I think you got a kitchen.
Excellent.
Despite lots of random finds, this is the first sign of where prehistoric people were living on this mound. And one thing our Bronze Age cooks would have had in common with their medieval counterparts, apart from frostbite, would have been a diet of eels. In fact, there were so many that they used to use them as currency. People actually paid their tithes with eels. And even today, there are still people who earn their living in the eel industry. Peter, how long has your family been involved with eels?
They've been on the Fen 500 years, and we know they've definitely trapped 200 years of them.
Using these kinds of traps?
Yep, the traditional eel hive. What you've got this end is you've got a chair. The idea is the eels can make their way in, but they can't return because the way their spikes are held inwards.
When's the good time to catch them here?
We usually start from the beginning of April, and the old saying goes, when the willow comes in the bud, the eels come out the mud. And we trap right through to the end of October, November, when they start hibernating again.
Well, the willows are just about beginning to bud now, aren't they?
They are, yes, so we might be lucky.
What are we going to bait our trap with?
Roadkill, anything which is good and smelly. One of the old favourite ones used to be an old dead cat. And what you do is, the thing with a dead cat is they smell like no other animal. And what you do is you bury it in the garden for a few days until the neighbours start moaning, and then you know it's time to put it out. And what you do is you put it through an old-fashioned blender or something similar to mush it up and then put it in. But
thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Rest assured, there's not a dead cat in sight. We're using rotting fish. Should we go and catch ourselves some eels?
Yeah, we'll go and get some eels.
Go and show me how it's done. Which is quite smelly enough, thank you. These hides are the same as prehistoric eelmen would have used, and they'd have set them in a vast network of tidal rivers snaking around our mound, the shadows of which remain today.
I do, lovely.
Back on the mound, the finds from Phil's trench suggest he's definitely found our chapel.
So really, we've got like two phases of pottery here. We've got quite an early phase, which is what, 12th maybe into 13th.
Yeah.
And then we've got this stuff, which is 15th into 16th. It looks quite posh as well, because I mean, we've got these bits of lead window came, so we've got glazed windows.
Glazed windows, of course.
And then we've got all this glazed floor tile.
Yes.
You think this is quite late, yeah?
Well, the later medieval tile tends to be one colour only, the dark one or a light one, so you get the contrasting mosaic effect.
So like a checkerboard almost.
Exactly,
yeah?
and that's more common in the later 14th, 15th century.
So if you've got all these tiles, this place must have had a major makeover sometime in the 15th century.
The windows and tiles are great details for reconstructing the final phase of the chapel. And although we know that it was part of the manor of Wolvie, we've been trying to find out exactly what that means. So Stuart's been surveying an old causeway connecting our mound to a field full of earthworks on the other side of the road.
And even that little indent there is shown. It's exactly the same.
And he's noticed that the lumps and bumps echo patterns in some of the earliest maps.
I get excited by earthworks. So I did a sketch survey of those. And if you put that next to it, there's the causeway. This is a double-banked causeway, a very clear feature in this field of which I'm calling the lumpy fields. It's full of lumps and bumps. This enclosure here is this one, and this is a classic medieval moated enclosure. And within it, you can see the remains of where buildings have been located in it. I'm convinced that this is a medieval manor site.
Yeah, so that's the classic manor and chapel, isn't it? The only reason it looks peculiar is because we've got this causeway, which you wouldn't need anywhere other than in this little bit of landscape.
That's right, yeah.
Usually, a private chapel would be within the moated complex, unless it was used by a wider congregation or predated the manor.
Lovely job.
The only way we'll find this out is by further excavation.
Do you want to have another smear down there? I want to see if there's any buttresses too.
So Faye's opened up the west end.
Faye, you got that west wall yet?
We certainly have, Phil, but we seem to have two of them.
Two west walls.
One where the lads are working there, and one here.
That's strange. It must be a cloakroom. I'm off.
See you later.
As well as trying to get to grips with this strange layout, we want to find out the origins of the chapel.
Yeah.
On our site, we've got pottery dating to the Saxon period, when Ramsey Abbey was founded and set about accumulating land and wealth.
We know that Ramsey Abbey is really voracious at acquiring the relics of saints. And they're all people they've pinched from churches in East Anglia. They've gone out, they've got the bones and the skulls, they've taken them back to the Abbey. That attracts pilgrims. Pilgrims bring money, especially if there's been miracles or something like that. It's the way the Abbey's making money. So it's possible that they knew there'd been a hermit on a site like this. They may even have acquired the relics from here. We don't have the documents for that, but it's quite a possibility.
Up here this afternoon, where it's so cold and bleak, you can see why a really masochistic hermit would like to live up here, can't you? The trouble with hermits is that they don't leave much behind them, so if there was a hermitage here, it'll be difficult to find. For 2 days, Francis has been trying to find a prehistoric ring ditch to prove that this mound has been a religious site for thousands of years. But the archaeology isn't playing ball.
It's stannionware, 13th, 14th century, made in the North and Northants.
It's a funny-looking thing, isn't it? It looks like a sort of cheeky sparrow, doesn't it?
It's got a face on it. And there would have been a series of these all around the rim of the jug, and then slip stripes coming down below them. It's been interpreted as sort of stylised dancing girls, sort of party pottery, if you like.
Party pottery. But it's a nice smiley face, isn't it?
Yeah, it's cute.
But what I tell you, I mean, much as I love the smiley face, what really irritates me is that we found it in a ditch down there, and we've been looking for a prehistoric ditch.
I'm afraid that's not even remotely prehistoric.
The party pot is a bombshell for Francis's theory that this crop mark was a prehistoric ring ditch. But Stuart's got a replacement theory that what we've actually got is a medieval bank all around the mound.
Now, why it shows up like this is we've got the slope coming down the hill like that. And in the medieval period, a bank's been raised on it, and then moisture gets trapped behind it. Not a vast amount of moisture, but enough to cause the dark stain on the photograph, which we thought might be a big ditch, just moisture against the bank. The bank gets ploughed away and what's left comes out as the white circle round the edge. So what we've got is a medieval circular enclosure, something which goes with the manor site, which is in the lumpy field over the road. It's like an enclosure either for animals or a mini park even, but it's firmly medieval in date.
Right, I mean...
It's a frustrating end to day 2 for Francis as he attempts to find an explanation for the prehistoric finds on the site. Luckily, the news is better in our chapel trench.
I think it's coming on really well. You can see the outline of this rectangular building round there, back round there, which would give us a sort of fairly bog-standard chapel you'd expect to find on a monastic estate. But it's beginning to get more complicated.
In what way?
Over where Phil's walking, we look to see if we've got another wall going off.
Phil, where do you think the wall might be?
Well, you see, we've got clay here, but then when we get into here, we've got whacking great stones. So it looks like it's running through here.
So if it is a wall, what would that imply?
Well, it sort of implies that there's something on the east end of this main block of the church. So it gives us a sort of 2-cell plan, and that's much more like you'd get with a sort of early parish church, a sort of church that belongs to a manor house. And of course, we've got the manor house, we're thinking the field next door.
So, end of day 2, and we may have what Mick refers to as a bog-standard chapel, or maybe we've got something more complex and more high status. Could this, in fact, have been the centre of worship for the whole area? We'll find out tomorrow.
If you'd like to see more episodes like this, you can make it happen.
Our new target is to reach 15,000 worldwide supporters on Patreon by the end of 2025. This will enable us to continue expanding the Time Team world. Enjoy front row seats for the greatest show on Earth and under it.
Beginning of day 3 here at Chapel Head in Cambridgeshire, and the sun's out. Looks like we found our medieval chapel. Everything's rosy, except it looks like our prehistoric story has completely fallen to pieces. Yesterday we thought we had a Bronze Age ditch all the way round our mound, but now it's turned out to be medieval, which means that basically your last 2 days has been a complete waste of time, isn't it, Francis?
Well, yeah, you could say that, Tony. But we know that this site had a lot of prehistoric finds on it. These 2 fine axes, we've got Bronze Age pottery, we've got lots of Neolithic flints, you've even got a Mesolithic flint. But, you know, these things weren't dropped out of the beak of a low-flying heron. You know, they had to have been put here by people.
So what are you going to do to try and establish what prehistoric features there are here?
Well, I'm going to start somewhere on the crown of this hill, because if I'd been a Bronze Age person and I had to bury my grandfather, I'd put him in a barrow on the top of this hill. This is a very, very commanding place.
So, with only a day left, Francis dispatches Matt to look for traces of Grandpa's burial mound.
This is the Stuart way of finding things then. What is he doing?
Stuart's searching for prehistoric features in the landscape.
Stuart's equivalent of dowsing.
And Tracy's exposing a bit more of the enclosure where she found Bronze Age pottery yesterday. And John's come up with a striking geophysical anomaly which he thinks is worth a punt.
Excellent. OK, that's that one.
Our big success has been revealing our medieval chapel, which is now looking a tad more complicated than we were expecting. Faye's found 2 walls in the west and a series of round pits.
We've got one here, we've got one over there, one over there, and possibly also something else happening over here.
Some of these pits really do look rather round, don't they?
They do, don't they? We've got these kind of dark, round splodges. One theory is these could be pits from a bell tower.
Why would you need pits in a bell tower?
Because it's somewhere for the ropes for the bells to go into.
So this could be something really exciting, a bell tower on the end of our chapel. That would be nice to find, wouldn't it?
It would be fantastic.
The sound of the bell could have echoed across the Fens, summoning people to prayer. But it's more common on a parish church than a private chapel.
Go down, Ian.
And Phil's expanding the east end to trace the wall line he found yesterday, which might be a chancel or an apse.
just get a little bit more curvature, that would be enough to prove it one way or the other.
Are you prepared for a straight curvature?
A straight curvature? I don't like straight curvature. I like curvy curvature.
A curve would mean we've got an apse and prove that this was once an important little church.
I think that is a wall, which is pretty something.
Earlier, we put a trench in across this geophysical anomaly because John had a hunch it might be something prehistoric.
I think what we've got is an in situ burnt wattle daub structure.
Brilliant.
I mean, if you look at some of this stuff that's in the tray, I mean, look at that.
Oh.
That's fantastic. You can really see there where the wattles have burnt out of the daub. And look at that face. I mean, you know, that's a wall. Interesting thing is, I got Ian to put a little box in at the end of the trench just to see where the natural was. And the natural's about another 6 inches or so down. I mean, this could be standing about 1 foot high. I mean, it's unheard of, because like, normally all you get is like a beam slot or a few post holes, but this looks like the actual remains of the timber structure in situ.
Medieval?
I would guess so. I mean, it's got to be medieval or earlier if it's wattle and daub, hasn't it?
Yeah. Could be a pretty big structure. I mean, we've taken the trench through there. There's 5 metres going that way and 10 metres this way.
I mean, it could be a longhouse or something.
A longhouse was a farm building housing both humans and animals. A medieval one should be easy to date, as it would be full of pottery finds. A prehistoric one would probably be pretty barren. This kind of building usually only survives as post holes, but what's extraordinary here is that fire has actually preserved the clay in the walls. Unfortunately, at the top of the mound, Matt's drawn a blank in his search for a prehistoric barrow.
Looks like, I thought we might have something here, like that.
Well, you do. You've got the reason why there's no archaeology at the top of the hill. These things are the subsoil furrows that the farmer left here, and that's why the archaeology has just been churned up and destroyed, yeah.
It was a lot of work to find a few plough marks, but at least we now know why there's nothing at the top of the hill. The upside of the ploughing is that it's turned over a lot of masonry, which looks like it's come from the chapel.
Now, what about this column? Now, I am of the belief that this is one, because I really think, I know they look slightly different in colour, but that's just the lichen, isn't it?
Yes.
The size is, it's pretty good. And also, what you notice is it's completely round. It's not been built into a wall.
Yeah.
It's obviously not architectural, is it?
No, we're looking at detail with this. I don't know, Piscina, Sedilias, something like that. Even the supports for a font, maybe.
Yeah, it'd be ideal for a font. It's the right height, roughly.
Exactly.
And,
This would have been a pretty posh font, and more evidence for our chapel being a parish church for the surrounding community.
It does actually just show as a vague mark.
And to add weight to this theory, Phil thinks he can just see an apse coming through.
Do you see that orangey gravel? Look at these bits of orangey gravel. They're just the same as the gravel that's in the main foundation trenches.
It's going to be painstaking work to find out if this really is an apse. But they say patience is a virtue, and Helen's hard work on the lead seal we found yesterday has paid off.
We used a bit of electronic trickery by scanning it and flipping the image, and from that you can see quite well that there's, well, the N is a bit hard to see, but then the A, the L, the D, G, I, F is quite clear. But we're missing the top half of it here, so I drew that out to see how much room we had left. And there's only 2 names really that end in Nald. There's Reginald and there's Arnold. There just isn't room for Reggie here, so I've put in R, which gives us room for the S as well. Seal of Arnold. And then the Giff could be 2 surnames, either Giffen or Gifford.
So if there is an Arnold Gifford or Arnold Giffen out there who's lost their seal, how old would he be by now?
Oh, about 700-800 years old, yeah.
When Arnold dropped his seal, the manor was owned by the infirmary of Ramsey Abbey, who was responsible for the sick and elderly monks. And it's a fair bet that some of his remedies used eel skin. Yeah, Pete! How you doing? Yesterday, Pete, the last eel man in Ely...
No, nothing in that one.
...set some traps using a design that hasn't changed in 10,000 years.
No, nothing in that one.
No?
No, nothing yet.
this is the last one. If there's nothing in here, our whole experiment turns to ashes.
No, nothing. That's it.
I bet there's a backup plan.
There is indeed a backup plan. These were bought by our researcher from an eel and pie shop in Shepherd's Bush the day before we came here. Medieval doctors used eel skin in all manner of cures for ear infections, boils, and even hair loss. God,
It's not easy.
Skin is tough, isn't it? Oh, one in my mouth. But skinning an eel is easier said than done.
I've heard the blood of these is toxic. Is that not right, Peter?
Yeah, they've said in modern studies that the eel blood is highly poisonous.
Oh, the Cockney blood's coursing through my veins, mate.
It's the genes, isn't it?
One of the more unlikely remedies involved wrapping eel skin around a lady's stomach until it dried and tightened. Oh.
Yes.
Apparently this was a cure for hysteria.
Look at that. Beautiful job.
Oh, thank goodness for medical advances. Oh, yes.
Very good, I think.
You got 2 more.
But you would have thought that after thousands of years of eel fishing, someone would have worked out a better way to skin them. Meanwhile, there's good news back on the mound, where Francis's desperate search for a prehistoric settlement is finally getting somewhere. Francis, can I come in your trench?
Yeah, sure, Tony.
This here is what we've been calling the Bronze Age settlement ditch, isn't it?
That's right, yes.
Is it Bronze Age and is it settlement?
Yes, I think it's both Bronze Age and a settlement. I think it's Bronze Age because we got 2 good pieces of Bronze Age pottery out of it there. And then we've been getting burning and burnt bone and possible cremation, but I'm not sure, out of it down there. So that looks like settlement to me. But this ditch here, which cuts through it, this darker one...
This shadow along here, yeah?
That's the one, yeah. Now, this ditch is part of a large rectangular enclosure which goes right across the top of the site. That produced a Roman tile from quite close to the top in that dark filling you can see in the section there. So it means that the ditch was open when that tile was knocking around, so it could be Iron Age. If I'm right, then this hill was occupied about 1,000 years before the chapel was built.
Francis decides to put in one more trench around the enclosure to find out if it is Iron Age.
We've got to go for it, and we're running out of time now.
And he's only got a couple of hours left. He's looking for pottery to prove that the Iron Age saw the first major settlement of the mound after sporadic Bronze Age occupation. Outside the enclosure, we've exposed more of the burnt wattle and daub building, which the archaeologists are suggesting could be a longhouse.
We're having a problem getting any sort of date out of it.
So the rest of the site is covered in medieval pottery, and we haven't got any here?
No, nothing. The longer that goes on, the less likely it is that this is a medieval structure, and the more likelihood that it might be earlier. So perhaps even prehistoric.
The lack of finds suggest it could possibly be a Bronze Age longhouse, and if so, it's an incredibly well-preserved and important find. But sadly, we can't prove it. We're pretty sure it's nothing to do with the chapel, though, where Phil's feeling the pressure of trying to work out if he's got an apse, while also digging below the 12th century foundations, hunting for an earlier building.
You've got to keep banging that back, and let's see the thing in plan. Sorry,
right,
but there's no two ways about it. There's no point in going down till we've gone out.
Get back to your own hole,
Yeah,
mate.
I will do. I will do.
The pottery finds so far suggest that the stone chapel was built in the 12th century during the civil wars of the reign of Stephen and Matilda. And this was a turbulent time for Ramsey Abbey.
Ramsey particularly wasn't doing very well because it had 2 abbots who nobody could agree who the abbot was supposed to be. So all their lands weren't being managed well. And then on top of that, we have a very tricky local baron around here, Geoffrey de Mandeville, who's in dispute with King Stephen. And in the middle of all these troubles, he goes into Ramsey Abbey and makes it his power base for a revolt in the Fens, really. He pillages Ely, he sacks Cambridge, he terrorises the land around.
This is shock and awe, isn't it?
It is, yes, medieval shock and awe.
It's just possible that de Mandeville sent his heavies to Chapel Head. because we found evidence of burning from this period dumped in the enclosure ditch.
You all right, Francis? How you doing?
But Francis believes that the origins of the enclosure are much, much earlier.
That's your pot, is it?
Yeah, it's not much and it's not very exciting, is it?
Well, that's OK. It's Shelley-ware, which narrows it down to Iron Age, Roman, Saxon or medieval, so that's all right.
It's good having an expert on site, isn't it?
Well, if you look at it, actually, it's off a base. Can you see the way that's just curving up there, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Now, it's a flat base. You don't get flat bases on Shelley-wares in the Saxon or medieval period, so it's got to be either Iron Age or Roman.
The position of this tiny bit of pot in the top of the ditch convinces Francis that the Iron Age saw the first major settlement of the hill. And although we've got finds going back to the Mesolithic, it seems the first people to live here did so in the Bronze Age. And the mound was probably a special place throughout history, right up to the building of the church.
Come to have a look at my church, then.
Oh, yeah. Have you gone on with it?
Absolutely cracking.
Yeah?
Now then, you know this morning we had an apse?
Yeah.
How does a chancel strike you?
Oh, that'd be fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Look, you can just see the traces of the foundation trench in that section. And it comes along there, and then here we got the turn of it,
Yeah.
and it comes along here, and that is our chancel.
Yeah.
Remind me what a chancel is again?
That's the eastern end of the church, which has the altar. It's the sort of priest's end, as opposed to the nave, the other end, which is where the congregation are.
So here's our chancel, and here is the wall that divides the chancel from the nave.
Yeah.
But look what we've got down there.
Oh, crikey.
We've got a beam slot or something like that, much earlier, but running parallel with that wall.
So what's the significance of that?
It's obviously a very much earlier building or boundary.
Or a church.
Or church.
Hang on, this chapel we reckon's early Norman, don't we?
Yeah.
So could that thing be Saxon?
Yeah, I mean, this could be a Saxon timber church replaced by the stone building on the top.
So this could have been the church at the centre of an early religious community that Mick was looking for. If so, sometime after the Norman conquest, Ramsey Abbey rebuilt the wooden church in stone. A couple of centuries later, in the 15th century, it was renovated and became part of the moated manorial complex Stuart found in the field next door. Actually, to find a chapel on a hill called Chapel Head may not be that surprising, but this is a rare and important find. From the first occupants of this area in the Neolithic through to the late medieval, every generation has left faint traces. But this chapel is somehow more. It represents an abbey staking claim to territory, it was an outpost of Christianity, and it was a landmark. 800 years ago, when this whole place was watery and forbidding, it must have been a very reassuring sight. Join Time Team on Patreon to access exclusive 3D models, masterclasses, and behind-the-scenes insights.